will be there.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, hello.
Live.
That looks like leisure wear to me.
I told you, don't judge me. No judging.
No, we're not judging.
We're jealous.
We're jealous.
I'm here, okay? I'm on the meeting.
We're glad you are.
So Forrest, I'm just gonna leave this up for you, and if someone else comes in, you can just click admit. And then
Okay.
you should be good to go.
Great, thank you.
It's
Thanks, Alicia.
up and
Thank
oh,
you so much.
you guys don't need a recording as well, because it's going live, right?
Right.
There you go.
Thank you so much.
Cool. Good luck. Let me know if you have seats on.
Thank you, Alicia.
You bet.
We have your number. It is 9:04 and I call the August 13, 2024 special meeting of the Economic Opportunity Advisory Board. Thank you all for being here. It's morning here in Moab. I'm not sure what it is where you are, Shaylee.
Better.
Time of day, Shaylee?
It's 11 Eastern. I'm on Eastern Standard Time.
All right. We'll begin the meeting with welcome introductions, and rather than just going around the room, if I may just indicate who is attending. We have Shaylee Bryant online, Melissa Jeffers online, Ashley Kornblatt online, Dave Sackerson online, Chris Wilson in the room, and Forrest Rogers in the room. We have guest Rob Walker online and Cassie Oliver from the Chamber online, and Jasmine Duncan representing the city of Castle Valley. Thank you all for making time to be here today. I ask in advance for your patience as we work through today's meeting. We have one major goal, which is to conclude the meeting with recommendations to advance to the county commission on the county's 2025 rural county grant projects. And we'll begin with a quick summary of what occurred at the last meeting. Then we'll turn to the topics in this meeting. There's been some great creative work done in a short period of time by both Rob Walker from Moab Community Childcare and Cassie and Shaylee from the Moab Area Chamber of Commerce, which has significantly changed the materials that were distributed initially for this meeting. Great creative thinking. Both entities have consulted with Colette Cox about their projects and had feedbacks to that. So I'll begin first of all with just a quick summary of the meeting we had on July 31st. We approved the Moab Area Community Land Trust interim report for their 2024-2025 Rural Communities Opportunity Grant. We had a great discussion about the future of the USU Small Business Development Center in Moab. That conversation resulted in consensus to look at alternatives. That conversation is now moved to county commission and county administration to resolve the agreement in the way that they determined based on commentary and feedback from the advisory board, and we expect other stakeholders. We deferred at that point the approval of Community Childcare's 2024 Rural County Grant Final Report. And we also deferred approval of their initial 2025 Rural County Grant application. We discussed the possibility of providing support to the chamber for expanding its its capabilities to provide the kind of business resource services that had been expected from Utah State University. And we did discuss the possibility of increasing the tuition assistance program for the community childcare. So that's a quick summary of, in the absence of minutes, that's the best summary I can provide for what brought us to today.
Or
Yes,
do we need to have the discussion of, it's not conflicts of interest, but disclosures? Because
you're right.
I think we have people that are on the EOAB who also worked on the chamber piece, so we probably need to.
That's right. That's right. Thank you. We had welcome and introductions. We haven't had the conflicts of interest disclosures and ex parte communication. So to Ben's point, Shaylee,
Hi.
because you are the chamber president, it appears that you might have a potential conflict of interest. I don't know whether that.
I would agree.
Yes, and I'm just asking, just so.
And
I know
Ashley is
everyone
on the
has
board.
Different things are doing all out, so let's
Right.
just, I wanna make sure we don't have.
So what's the best approach here?
I would almost say I should recuse myself from voting on
Okay.
on the chamber portion of this. I mean, I feel like my input is probably helpful, but I think I should recuse myself from voting on the chamber.
Agreed.
So I would have to do that as well.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And
We're,
then just for.
If we, do we
guess.
have enough of a quorum if we both recuse ourselves? That was one of the questions I was gonna ask.
yeah, good question. We do. Yeah, Chris?
So a few of us met to help do further work on the chamber proposal, and I was among those, as I think was Melissa as well.
Well,
And
So
I
just
gave some
disclosing that.
input on I gave some red lines
Great.
too, so.
Great. Okay, so well noted. Shaylee and Ashley will recuse themselves from voting. We remain a quorum. Melissa, Chris, and Ben Frederick-Gill assisted the chamber in thinking through their new proposed project. Thank you for that, Ben.
Excuse me,
So-
but don't they have to declare their reason for recusing themselves? I can understand the one, but what's Ashley's?
Ashley is also a member of the chamber board.
Okay.
I think we've covered it. Thanks. Given where we are, my recommendation for the next 10 to 15 minutes is to ask Moab Community Childcare and the chamber to give an overview of the projects that you were putting forward for the 2025 Rural County Grant Program. And let's have both of them, and then we'll go into discussion about each of them following that overview. I don't see Rob. He must have stepped away. So let's start with the chamber. Cassie, did he step away?
He just fell off and I just.
Oh, he just fell off. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay, he's back.
Okay.
Probably start with the chambers.
Yeah.
If you want.
Yeah.
There he is. There's Rob.
Okay, Rob, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, I just said that we'll begin with a 10 to 15 minute overview of the proposals from both the chamber and from community childcare. And just an overview with a focus on the dollar amount, the rationale. And then following those two introductions, we'll then move to to discussing them in concert. Because they're obviously both really well thought out proposals and very, very much providing a need for Grand County. So because I'd lost you, Rob, I've asked the chamber to begin with their quick 10 to 15 minute overview.
So our proposal is for a program that starts, it's kind of like a two-tiered, like two hopes program, but it starts with a website it's a hub of resources for businesses. With us not having the SBDC, there is a real gap for our community on how small businesses can find resources and get the help that they need. And so we have decided that what we'd like to do is create a website for them to go where they would do an intake form, give us a brief description of their business and what kinds of things they're looking for, and then the chamber can connect them up with the best resources for them. There are a lot of resources already provided by the state, the federal government, and the county. There are a lot of people in the area that can help, but very few people know where to go. So the chamber wants to take that role on and help people find the right resources and get to the right places. The other thing that's really great about that is it's going to give us a lot of data. So we're going to get a lot of information about what people are needing in our community, where our county is struggling. Maybe we'll find out that a lot of people need help with marketing, or maybe we're completely wrong and what they really need help with is HR resources. And so this will help us understand what our community actually needs. And the hope with that is that we can build an actual physical anchor for this hub in the community in the next couple of years, using that data to determine what we need. Do we need commercial kitchen space? Do people need a place to go where they can do a podcast for their business? Do they need a place where they can create some marketing information for their business? So that is our hope with this. The funds for this proposal are going to help us to build the website. And as much as I would love to be the one that does this as the only employee at the chamber, we're also going to need to find some help with that. We're going to need to get some contractors in to help us get it set up and get it going, and then get it so this program is then not just a yearly thing. We would like this to become something that the community can use as a resource continually.
Any questions? I have one. Do you have a question?
I mean, I have several,
Look,
but I
let's
don't
go.
know that, do we want to do that now or do we want to hear? I am happy to kind of hold questions and do that during the
Okay.
discussion time too,
Okay.
whatever makes the most sense.
Okay, I would like to know now the feedback from Colette,
Sure.
because
Oh,
both entities were able to have conversations and get some feedback.
Absolutely. So our original plan was to essentially create a small business center in town that the chamber then ran and was part of. And with our conversation with Colette, she strongly discouraged us from doing that because she said the state was already funding something like that. And they would rather the people that they already gave the money to do that stepped up and did what they were asked to do. And so she discouraged us from doing things that were already being done. When we were talking about the situation in Grant County, how we don't have anyone, she was talking about, she used the word Band-Aid, like maybe we could have a Band-Aid solution, but then also this Band-Aid solution, which is what this is something that can be more than just a Band-Aid. It's filling a stopgap. It's a stopgap measure, but really it's something that we can turn into something even greater for our community, which is what we discussed with Colette. And she was the one that came up with the idea for the business hub, and was really excited about the data that we could give back to the county, that we could give back to GOYO, that we could, give to the city and things, that data that we would have. The other thing that I forgot to mention, I'm really excited about, is I feel like this fits right in with our Trails to Tomorrow strategic plan. It's actually mentioned in there, having an entrepreneurial hub. And so I feel like this would fit right in with that. And there's so many resources, and Jasmine had mentioned this earlier, that are out there. And people just don't know where they are. And we, as the chamber, we have a lot of access to the people in the community. And so we can really get that information out. Marketing is also another thing on here that we would need to do. So to make sure that people understand this resource is there, and then give us the opportunity to help the people in the community with it.
So rather than using Band-Aid, we could describe this as an interim or a springboard.
Yeah,
Is it
springboard is a really great word for this,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing, just we really don't want to rewrite the will of what the SBDC is doing, but the SBDC takes in brand new business owners and gives them a few resources. But we want to be a hub that not only helps businesses start, but also help them grow and thrive. We want to be somewhere that they can come and, you know, if it may be in the future, if we get a strong enough SBDC person, that we work very closely in them, so we're not duplicating those efforts. But we want to make sure that we're helping our business owners in Moab to thrive.
Start, grow, and thrive. That can be your brand. I think that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah. Okay. No more questions then, Rob, we'll turn it over to you.
Hang on, I just have one more point real quick.
Oh, Ashley, yeah, I'm sorry.
No worries, no worries. I just wanted to point out that part of the purpose of this whole effort is to help, support entrepreneurs in Moab. And so what that means is the people who are trying to make bread and sell it at Moonflower, or the people who are trying to, do catering, or there's a lot of entrepreneur, like there are a lot of guides in town who move on in their next stage of their career to be entrepreneurial, but they need a lot of support. So instead of working to try to recruit other companies, like classic diversification strategy, it's definitely more about investing in the people who already live in Moab, who've already committed to Moab, and who want to get to the next level on their income in Moab. They're ready to get a house and start a family, and they're ready to do or whatever to do they have the next level. And so it really, the reason I think this project is so compelling is that there are a lot of people like that in town. So instead of trying to diversify by bringing in outside businesses, we're talking about really nurturing the businesses, the nascent businesses that have started in Moab, and supporting community members to get to the next place. And that makes our economy stronger and better. And so I just wanted to add that point.
Thank you. Thanks, Ashley. Well, let's join us. Or is joining us. Rob, let's turn to you and the revised project.
Hey, Cass, real quick, do you want?
Do I want what? I don't know what she wanted.
Hey, Forrest, I'm texting with Colette. Colette said she can join for like 10 minutes.
Okay. So
If you see her in the waiting room, she didn't have it on her calendar.
okay.
But if you see her,
Is that Colette down there?
Yes, she's joined now.
And then is that Deborah McKee? Do I have to let her in?
I think.
I did. You did? Okay.
I'm here. Thank you for giving me a heads up.
Hi, Colette.
Hi.
Welcome. Colette Cox from the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity.
And I hope it's okay. I also invited Deborah McKee. She's our new representative for Grand County. She should hopefully be showing up in the.
He's in.
Oh, good.
Hello, I'm here.
Hello, Deborah.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You've joined us. We're looking forward to meeting you next week. If in fact you will be here for the summit.
That is the plan. I hope to be there. As long as I can make it from Monticello.
Gee, I don't know. If it rains as it did last night, that might be a challenge.
Yes, I agree. At least it's not snow though.
Amen. Okay, we've just had Cassie walk through the Chambers Rural County Grant project as proposed. I'm going to turn to Rob, and then Colette, you have about 10 minutes, I understand. Is that correct?
Yeah, about 10-15 minutes.
Okay, so maybe so that we don't abuse your time and cause any consternation on your part. Cassie has just gone through the Chamber's proposal. Rob will go through the community child care proposal, but can I sandwich you in the middle and have you comment on both of those?
Sure. If it's okay, I've been in contact with both parties, worked with Melissa and Cassie and also Rob individually just to answer questions, to make sure that their projects were in alignment, gave some advice as far as what could be proposed now versus into the future. Both proposals are strong proposals, really, and the good news is that this money for the rural county grant is a little bit more forgiving in the sense that it's that renewable money comes to the community to the county every year. And you have a little bit more flexibility, whereas with like the Rural Communities Opportunity Grant, it's for something very specific. It's a little bit more rigid. So I think it really boils down to the needs in the community, and that's what I would suggest that the committee consider is what are the highest needs right now. And remind me, Forrest, how much money from the Rural County Grant is available potentially for these groups? Was it $50,000 or 70?
The total is 200.
Yeah.
But since our last meeting, we've had shifts in the total amount that each is proposing. So part of our challenge will be to sort out where the optimal funding for each of them is within the $200,000 threshold.
So the good news is,
am I answering your question?
yeah. So the good news is you'll fund both projects, but you're looking at the funding amount.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's our intent.
Will you just in case there's been any changes between now and when I spoke with each party last, which has been a few days, can you give me the total requests from both sides?
Cassie?
We're 120,000 is what we're requesting.
120, okay.
And Rob? Rob, your request?
Well, I was told to make the request to have some optionality if you wanted to have more for us. So I'd say the total request is 160. Of that, there's about 100,000, which would be a new classroom at our infant center.
Right.
You say 160?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just pulling up the information here. So going back to the Chamber's proposal first, I think that we talked extensively about the responsibility, the need in the community, but the responsibility of other entities for providing business, what we call technical support. So accounting, marketing advice, and things like that. I understand that the chambers really step in and they support this in the absence of the Small Business Development Center and organizations like that. So with the challenge with the business center and business advising proposal right now for me is that the chamber does not have expanded space to hold an incubator or accelerator program in the basement of in the Zions Bank building. And so until there's a physical space to build out, it's hard to build out the programs. And it's also, I have some ethical concerns, and we had a very in-depth conversation because we're seeing this actually across the state where rural communities are floundering in the absence of the Small Business Development Center stepping up to really fulfill the needs of the technical assistance needs of our small businesses. And that is why the entire program statewide is under legislative review. And so my suggestion at this time would be, and then we talked about like the kitchen incubator proposal as well, which again, I feel it's an awesome idea. And, but even with the kitchen incubator, it's all about a place and having a home and having a program that is moving into the future. So with that being said, my advice would be at this time, because there is physical space and momentum with the childcare program, my advice to the committee, and again, it's your decision alone, but would be to invest a bit more into the childcare program with keeping the technical assistance and giving the chamber support to host the business conference, to host some additional training events, to host potentially a part-time advisor that could do some things within the existing space that they're in, or some virtual advising, but they're just not quite ready. My last call, and I apologize for being late, I didn't have it on my calendar, but we're working on a business center for Box Elder County right now. They would gladly hand over this footprint to you when you're ready. We have other successful centers, but we've got to go into really having a place and sustainable money going forward, because otherwise you're dumping money into a program that's only going to exist for 1 year if we don't have a plan for ongoing funding for the position and for the physical space. So again, I think that the childcare program has that physical space and the momentum. But also with that being said, we've talked for the last 2 years about the childcare program being self-sufficient. And I think this is the year for Moab Childcare to fully launch into that self-sufficiency. So with the lack of other proposals, that would be my recommendation, is to give more money or give heavier support to the childcare versus the technical assistance at this time.
Thank you for that. That's helpful perspective. I'm going to let Cassie, I think Cassie has had some thinking perhaps since you talked with her last, and I'd like to give her a moment to
Sure.
respond.
Absolutely.
I just want to let you know, Colette, we took your advice and we actually took that technical assistance completely out and the kitchen incubator. And we went towards the virtual hub where we provided the resources. So that's what this is actually for. It's not to get someone to be the SBDC, but it's a place for people to come to find their resources and for the chamber to collect data and information to inform us where we need to build and where we need to grow, so.
That's perfect. And, you know, I mean, I gave some example, thank you, Cassie. And I gave some examples to Cassie from other parts of the state that have used these virtual hubs. And we as a state have actually gone this direction too with our Startup State Initiative. And the way we're offering services through that Startup State Initiative virtually has really opened up a lot of doors. And I think this virtual hub, again, will set the tone. My recommendation would be, again, just for the best use of funding. I don't think this project would, you know, based on my experience building something similar in Washington County and maintaining it, more than like $30,000. I don't think that it would need the funding of up to $100,000. I think that it would be smaller in order to build that hub. And I can shoot over some the example that I gave to Cassie from Washington County area, or it's actually the 5-county region, in the chat if you'd like to see that. And also I've committed to help build that out personally, and give my knowledge from my past experience to make sure that the right resources are in that virtual hub.
Colette, Chris has a question. You know that Chris, Melissa, and Ben all participated in the conversations with the chamber.
So,
Great.
yeah, Colette, I was just wondering, I mean, to me, when we think about sort of like, what are the strongest local needs right now? I really do think that we've been lacking for a few years now, some of that technical support, really getting out there, being there on the ground for our local businesses. And so for me, making sure that that's available, doing whatever we can to help that be available in the coming year or years is one of the most important things we can do. And so with that, I just want to ask I understand the concerns about sort of like replicating and duplicating resources, stepping in where state funded resources should be offered.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to do that, but I also want to make sure that we're not just standing up like a passive website because we're afraid of getting out there and being too active in supporting our businesses. And so I guess my question for you is sort of like, how do we find the right balance of being there on the ground and supporting our businesses without duplicating, I suppose?
You've just summarized the greatest challenge that I have statewide in rural areas right now, to be honest. It is, and what I said to Melissa and to Cassie is, patience is not something that is a virtue I hold. I want this now for our businesses. Unfortunately, we have our hands tied in some ways right now. And again, that we have to let the legislative review happen. And I don't think that services should stop because one entity is not fulfilling their role in our state and in our communities. However, what I explained is the chamber really, instead of trying to duplicate efforts, should really be there to coordinate and support bringing in other entities. So helping to coordinate resources from the Women's Business Center of Utah, from the SBA, from Impact Utah, from other entities. So the chamber acts as more of a host and a connector and a scheduler, and also acts, because we know they already connect, to help bring capital to businesses who want to expand. If they have an HR problem, a marketing issue, or question, an accounting issue, they're referring out to local people who can help, regional people or state people who can help answer those questions and help solve the problem. So I think it's really more of that coordination, and then also having virtually the resources to answer the questions themselves. So it's a challenge, but again, one-time money, this is my challenge right here, and this is the point I'm trying to make, is throwing $100,000 at the program this year. It only changes it for a year. It'll employ somebody for a year. We don't have ongoing money unless the team is really here and wants to commit, a salary for multiple years into the future. So that's another consideration. And again, that's the beauty of this money. But I would hate to see a program be developed within 12 months and then have it go away because the committee's changed and then the funding's gone. So we want to have it moved through a stable funding stream. And also, again, there's that tie to the university. We have technical colleges in other parts of the state that we tie these programs to. You do not have that luxury, so we're really relying on the university. And so really coordinating with the university and kind of demanding for your community what the needs are, and working together and even offering some of this money to help support. And I know they have a business counselor, an SBDC counselor in the Price area, which is part of your Eastern USU group, who can do virtual appointments and things like that. And that's not perfect, but it is something. So again, even helping the community utilize that resource. Roger was there at one of the meetings a couple months ago. So again, that's my perspective. But it's desperate, and I know exactly what the hole you're trying to fill. I did that personally when I ran the chamber in Kane County, and then I did it as a paid position through Utah Tech University. So I understand both sides of that coin, and it's so desperately needed. So again, that's why I'm committed to helping you solve this politically through the university, and also physically by helping you connect to the right resources. So through the chamber and through your economic committee, you can get that out to the businesses on the front end. We don't want them to flounder.
Thank you for that. That's all helpful. Shaylee has a question. I'm not sure if it's directed at you, Colette, or the group.
Well, and I don't want to take too much more of Colette's time, but what I was just going to say is a big part of why our ask is 120 and not smaller is because we only have Cassie. We don't have any other employees, and we want to be able to do like a feasibility study to make sure that we can self-fund this continually. This helps us actually go after bigger grants, and we can use this as matching funds.
Yeah.
So like, we want to make sure exactly all the things you're saying that we're taking care of. But honestly, if we were to get 30,000, I don't know that we can make this project happen with just that amount right now, because we just don't have the manpower.
Mm-hmm.
That's why our ask is big, is we wouldn't want to come back next year and ask for more money. It would be, this is our jump off.
And
money.
I can tell you, Shaylee, that because of my prior experience and through GOEO, because we've supported so many of these centers, I can tell you a feasibility study is not needed. I can, between Deborah and myself, we can get you the information that would come out in a study for, cost, for services, for everything that's required to stand up a program. That is something we can do in honestly reasonably short order. And so I would hate for you to sink money into an outside agency, trying to do something that we can do internally. I don't think that would be the best use of your funding, but you're right. If you do take a higher amount and fund a person this year, it would be helpful, and it would be a Band-Aid too. It would be a Band-Aid. And we just know it would be temporary. And the person going into that position would just have to know that that job is temporary. But yeah, absolutely. If there were
For
if there was
sure.
additional help, that would help, that would coordinate.
That's why we called it a project manager in the proposal, was we knew it was going to be a short-term position to just simply get this where it can be self-funded. And then we don't need the project manager anymore. So,
Yeah.
We agree. We appreciate so much all the work you do.
Colette, I appreciate your help, at least for me, reminding us about community childcare's longstanding goal to be self-sufficient, and the concern about a one-time infusion of money that may not actually trigger other sources of funds in the future, regardless of the source. I want to cycle back to the idea of the web as being sort of the hub, and if that is is that a viable option for the chamber, recognizing that the chamber has a great group of volunteers, but only one staff person?
We would definitely need to hire, like, I can't do web design, so we would have to contract things out, that otherwise it won't happen.
Right.
And then also the intake forms, I would need assistance, because unfortunately the chamber has I have to do other things but we would definitely need a minimum of a part-time person to help out with that.
Yeah.
So those are two things I think that would be really important. And then I also, and Colette had brought this up, would need to make sure that we had funding to do the trainings and things like that, where we could bring people down.
Right.
For instance, this year we have two educators in business strategy coming to talk. And so I want to make sure that we continue to do that in the upcoming year, as well as the business summit.
Okay. Dave Sackerson has a question.
Not necessarily a question, but an option, I think. And I think that USU could be the possible answer to a lot of this right now. I think engaging them and expressing the need for what we're trying to accomplish here, we could use their resources to help facilitate this and at least get the project started. But I think, you've already got a group here today that has the capability of helping us out and the technology to help us out with this. So I think that's a resource that we probably could rely on, and I think it'd be a good resource.
And if
Dave, when you were referring to USU, were you referring to the university as opposed to the SBDC?
No, I'm referring to the university. Yeah.
Okay.
And Forrest,
yes.
if I might add just very quickly that if you can look at the funding, again, not to necessarily pay, but to pay for the coordination, like Cassie's saying, at least if you're looking at a half-time person and then paying for the technology development, the hub development, the web development, that ask is very reasonable. And if you can get that within your budget, I mean, obviously there's money to fund both. And like you said, it's just the split. But if you could fund that half-time person to do the coordination, the resources are there. And Utah State, outside of the SBDC, has those resources. I'm happy to help facilitate those conversations as well. But it's really coordinating and executing the trainings and things like that, whether they're virtual or in person. So I can absolutely see that half-time position being funded. And again, knowing with the person coming in, knowing that it's a half-time position, and even for the longevity of the position, it's a lot easier to fund a half-time position going into the future than it is a full-time position. So. And with that being said, I'm going to join on my phone and I'll listen in as long as I can. I've got an appointment at 10 o'clock, a doctor's appointment. So I'm sorry I couldn't reschedule that, but I'll just hang on for the next 10 minutes while I drive.
We sure appreciate you, Colette. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now, Deborah, you have an idea of the kinds of conversations we have here in Moab. So,
Good to know. Good to know. And I have been a part of, some of these incubator development scenarios as well. So, today's only my second day, so I don't want to offer too much advice. But as, we move forward, I think that I could definitely offer some suggestions.
wonderful. Thank you. So let's take a step back. Colette set up Rob's, in fact, she may have presented Rob's program and the case for it, but I'll turn it to Rob and then we'll take a step back and look at where we are and then start the conversations about what essentially will be how we support both programs in the most equitable and stable or sustainable way. So Rob, would you
Yeah, thanks guys. I apologize, my internet connection. I'm on in Connecticut, about to start a vacation. So hope the internet hangs in there. But so the program we wrote a real small proposal up, focused on the items and the RCG, the overview, the workforce retention expansion, and then the business expansion and infrastructure development. Some of the tactics are changing relative to what we presented at the last meeting, but obviously the purpose of all this is still squarely focused on increasing the availability of high quality affordable childcare in our valley. So one of the main chunks is an employee retention and development program. Colette was talking about how much they like, the state likes to see workforce development, and that's something we do already. We spend a bunch of money doing it. We would love to increase that and increase the amount of hours that we can pay our staff to pursue different professional development things. The main one would be an online platform that we use, where they can log hours when they want to. It's nice because we can track it and make sure and track and ensure engagement in the program. We also pay a small portion, about $1,200 or so, for people to pursue a childhood development associate's degree to cover the time required to study, because we want to pay our people to be in a training class, not just to say like, your training is free. It's like, well, you have to put the time in. So we have to encourage people to do that. So this all builds our workforce for childcare out. And we have, we employ 17 people. And then I know between Montessori, Sego Lily, other places, it's probably another 10 workers. So we'd love to expand the scope of our training and development program to them and to their workers as well. So that's all really in that side of it. And then I should talk about the big bucket is, well, the exciting stuff is expanding and adding infrastructure in the form of buildings and things like that. So as we have been able to expand to this point without building anything really, besides playgrounds and fences and things like that and renovations, we've used 2 existing church locations. And then used that worked with Synergy on a site where they had a manufactured building they were renting anyways that could be repurposed for childcare. There could still be some more of those available. What I'll say is it does add a layer of complexity to our operations, and in maybe 2 ways. One, it adds an entire other constituency, which is the church and the congregation and those members and the trustees, for us to kind of do things, whether that's like adding a shade sail or whatever. The other main thing is that for efficiency standpoint, it makes sense to co-locate as much as you can. A lot of parents just randomly will decide to not bring their child in one day, and 90% of our costs are employee wages. So like for-profit childcare centers typically will have 100 or so kids in a bunch of different classrooms in one building, and then you can move your staff around and move your kids around to different rooms based on what ages of kids show up at that time, and that increases staffing efficiency. And for us as a nonprofit, that'll help us lower our costs and to reach break even, which we hope by different levels, probably like later in 2025. to get that. So in terms of, so we have some money to expand our existing facility from 15 to 20, which is buying new materials and things like that for the extra automatic baby swings and things like that. And there's a cool program at Lilly that we can help them work towards getting a state license, which would allow them to accept federal subsidies, which would be huge. They need a fence, some gates, and some kitchen renovations that I don't think will be more than $5,000. In terms of our new classroom, we have right now maybe 27 kids total enrolled out of 35 capacity at both of our centers. 15 at our community church location, which is for preschoolers, and 20 up to 20 at the infant center. We're probably 15 there now. However, the majority of kids that we have enrolled are very young. So we have about 12, I think, under the age of 12 months right now. So if you think of it in cohort sizes, we serve kids 0 to 5. So as the kids age, and they tend to stay with their child care provider as they age, and we've seen we'll need space for probably 50 to 60 kids over the coming, say, like 2 years. So yeah, we're going to need more space probably by mid 2025, which, this grant, usually I think the payments are in February. So that would kind of work out. I mean, we'd still be probably a little behind because of the cost to build, but we have that half-acre space at the Lutheran Center. We have a 1/4 acre dirt lot that we have permission from the Lutheran Church. They're a very small congregation to place a commercial building on that site. This would be a very small building. It'd be a classroom. It's the same company that comes up and produces the modular units at the Moab Charter School. It'd be kind of a similar unit to that. We'll look into building a stick built as well if we can get a good enough bid on one. But this will certainly be the most economical at $150 or so a square foot. The building has to be commercial grade, unfortunately, so we can't get a pre-made manufactured house. That would be more economical. The nice thing about this, a number of nice things about it is, being right on our site increases that site capacity. So, we can utilize things like our existing playground, which we plan to expand. So I think, it is a lot of money, but I think you do get like real infrastructure for that. We get a building, and it'll definitely set us up for lower cost to provide care going forward. And I apologize for my connection. I hope you've heard this okay. I'll leave it there.
Thanks, Rob.
I think we heard you better than anyone that's been on this.
Yeah, Melissa, did you have a question or a comment?
Nope, just adjusting.
Okay, okay. Thanks, Rob. Any comments or questions of Rob? None? Okay, we now have two. I do have a question, Rob. You've done a great job of breaking down the discrete costs under the child care, employee retention and development. And it appears that they all go together, that in your mind, and your plans, you can't isolate any one of these significantly without causing some challenges for you. Is that correct?
No, I think these can all be tweaked slightly. Yeah, I mean, I think the tougher one would be the classroom, which I think, kind of like on a minimum basis needs a certain amount of money to go forward. Exactly. This certainly helps us develop our workforce more for the future and incentivize people to get some of those extra designations. And then it helps us financially significantly get towards break even, because a lot of these are costs that we were going to have to find a way to support, because we want to do these things and we do offer some of these things.
Right.
This is, go ahead.
You go ahead.
If you wanted to, if we wanted to tweak some of them lower, that could certainly be fine. We could still do them and still do them to some degree. We could, but I'd say like that they're kind of each sized relatively modestly, I'd say.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So let me summarize, and if I'm off, somebody let me know. Community childcare basically has two pieces to this 2025 RCG request. One is focused on workforce and growing the workforce, training the workforce, providing more, possibly more respite care for childcare workers. The second is a capital project. And my assumption is, Rob, that especially for Sago Lily, the capital investments are really required in order for them to expand their services.
Yeah, I set, and the one pager I attached, the expansion should be separated into two buckets. One bucket is something that I would, I think is a slam dunk and definitely should happen, which is the 12,500, which would be materials that we need to purchase to serve more infants at our current location. This is buying things like, it roughly takes, I mean, it's at least about $1,000 per kid that you serve in terms of all the things you need to buy for them. We have like automatic baby swings and cribs, and we have blackout tents for all the kids and personal noise machines and all these things. That seems like a definitely like slam dunk, I'd say. And then same thing with the Sago Lily expansion. If you guys have been out there to Annie's Farm, it's such a cool place. But yeah, I mean, the inside needs a lot of work. And I don't think a lot, when I say a lot of work, I think the modest kitchen improvements and some lighting fixtures and things would go a long way to improving that quality, and then helping them obviously pass the licensing exam, the licensing requirements with a fence. So then I separated the new classroom separately, and that's roughly $100,000 for that new classroom. I sized it at 97.5 to make the overall ask an even round number of 160. We could certainly do a little more than that, or we could certainly make do with a little less than that and find other funds to kind of fill any gaps that we can't get filled from this group.
Thanks, Rob. So the total of the childcare request is 160,000. If that was funded, if we recommended funding that fully, that would leave us 40,000 till we reach the threshold for the grant program. Cassie, I'm going to turn this over to you now and see if you have some thoughts about the web hub concept and how the chamber could utilize those funds.
Can I jump in on that too?
Please.
Because I think this is our challenge, is to find, what mix of these two sets of projects we can do and can be done effectively with the amount of money. It's not just like picking a number, arbitrarily. We have to look at what can really be done with the funding. And I mean, I think we have to be pretty sensitive to the fact that we do know at the chamber it's just Cassie, and so if we want the chamber to take on a task, there needs to be a sufficient amount of money there for that to be done, right? So we just have to be realistic with this stuff. For me, the question isn't starting, and others might be in a different spot with this, but for me, the question isn't what could the chamber do with 40,000? It's what we would like the chamber to be able to do at a baseline level even. I mean, I think we know we want the chamber, at least personally, to help with the business summit, something that's gone on for a long time. It's important for our business community to do additional business trainings. That's something to have a track record for and just getting better at over time. And it asked previously for a pretty modest amount to help make that happen. And then something that helps fill the gap in terms of business support in Grand County that's reasonable. I mean, whatever, there's a lot of questions I have around what exactly that means, what's reasonable. I mean, I was asking Colette to try to get a sense of what she thinks is reasonable there. I mean, we don't want to duplicate resources, but we want to have, you know, I mean, I think what we want to have is somebody in a part-time position that can help do some of this work. And so, I mean, I think for me, the question is like, what can we do that at? I mean, I put some numbers down just based on the conversation we've had, but I mean, I'm happy to like run my proposal by, or if you want to just jump in with what you think some of those baseline.
I'd love
That's
to hear,
fine, too.
I've been trying to,
Yeah.
I am not good at doing numbers on the fly, I'm an analytical person, so, but I would love to hear what numbers
So.
you have.
Okay, so we talked about, let's just like work back from the previous conversation. We talked about $5,000 to $10,000 for the business trainings for next year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's just go with those numbers that we had from last time. 18.5 thousand for support for the business summit. And then, so then the trickier question is, what does it take to get a virtual hub launched? And based on Colette's feedback, it sounded like what we're talking about is a half-time position plus a little bit of extra support for website development.
Yeah.
I mean, so is 30,000 for that part-time position reasonable, plus 5,000 for the website? Does it need to be a little bit more than that? You know, what would it take to hire somebody half-time here to do that kind of coordination work?
Yeah. That's the struggle is in Moab. I mean, part-time, that's a $60,000 job full-time annually, and I think that's a pretty good wage, I would bet. So I think 30,000 would be, that's where I was thinking in my head. I was like, was it 30? I was thinking between 30 and 40. So I think that's right where I was at. Shaylee, what do you think about that?
Shaylee had her hand up earlier. Shaylee?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, kind of around the same thing, like I exactly was trying to go with the direction Chris was. We do have a space to put a halftime worker right now. Yeah, and like I said, we are going after additional funds. And we can use this as matching, but I think, you know, so if you do 18.5 plus 5 to 10, so even that's roughly almost 30 if you do 10,000. Plus halftime plus that, I mean, we're still looking between 70 and 75. But I also, you know, I understand what, you know, what MCC is doing is so vital and important. So, you know, could $100,000 be still super helpful to MCC, or do we need to increase that a little bit more?
I mean, with the numbers that I threw out at that, which was at that 30K, which may be the minimum for that part-time position, that would leave 136.5 for MCC. And I think we would just have to ask Rob to put that together. But I mean, I think it's important for us, and I think we've received a lot of feedback from Colette that infrastructure is a good use of these grant funds, because it's something that you make a one-time investment into that keeps reaping benefits for out into the future.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, but I would let Rob sort of work with it exactly, but somewhere in the $95,000 to $110,000 for infrastructure. And then that leaves, I mean, we'd be asking him then to trim down the workforce to do that, which might not be easy, but I think could probably be managed. It would be somewhere between 26.5 to 41.5K allocated for this coming year to help support workforce development for Moab Community Childcare.
And so what would the complete split be then?
136.5 for Moab Community Childcare and 63.5 for the chamber. That's again, I do want to, that's at 30,000 for that part-time position.
Yeah.
If that's not reasonable, then I think we should revisit that.
So,
But that's the ballpark that we're in there.
yeah, I was just gonna say,
Okay.
in this past year, one thing that looked like it gave us traction with these grants was the fact that we had done phased approach. I think we got an attaboy from the GOEO that with the community housing, that we had a phase 1 and a phase 2, but there was an end in sight. It wasn't like this is perpetuity. So with Rob saying that he's trying to go to a self-funding model, this is a phased approach. So we're closing out a phase there. I'm just thinking out loud, phase there, and we're starting the phase of the chamber that we come in and we seed this, and then we're planning that we build on this, that we're having there's an efficiency model and that we then next year start building on what was seeded this year is just an idea.
I want to follow up
I
on that, but I
think-
know again, so let's, yeah.
Melissa?
No, totally. Ben, based on what you were saying also, that's sort of what I was thinking with the phased approach. And one thing that I am a heavy advocate for in the chamber proposal that I would like to not lose, or that I would like to carve out additional space for, is that we're talking about this physical anchor hub. So we know that there's a need for a commissary kitchen, podcasting studio, support resources, co-working space. And what I love the idea of doing is being able to work with Colette and work with Deborah on getting all the feasibility studies in terms of what's needed from the support and the technical assistance part. But the other thing that we had talked about doing is putting together the business plan and putting together the needs assessment of what would be needed in terms of physical anchor facilities for the community. What exactly would we need in a commissary or commercial kitchen? Would that include consumer packaged goods? Do people just need a place to do some catering? So I really like the idea of preserving that chunk if we could, to take that phased approach, because then it might be that as Moab Community Childcare is moving into self-sufficiency in 25 on the tail of this grant, the chamber is moving into providing that sorting and filtering to make sure that local businesses get the information and the technical assistance that they need. And also there's a business plan, a feasibility study, and a needs assessment in hand to be able to say, and now here's what we would like to invest, or here's what we would like to propose for physical facilities. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Ashley, did you want to jump in on this part of the conversation?
No, I'm tracking. I'm always grateful for those number breakdowns that you can do on the fly there. That's awesome. But it seems like that's where we need to go is figure out how we're gonna break it down.
Just to follow up on what Ben was saying, I mean, I would just put out there too, that I don't know what's gonna happen with this, but there's $365,000 dedicated to supporting small businesses in the area with the type of services we're talking about that was given to the SBDC and may become available again in the future, right? And so if we're thinking about like stages of investment in this, I mean, that's a good chunk of money that's potentially, and I mean, definitely a big asterisk there, but potentially available to help do a next stage of funding in this direction.
And I think that one, we're at the point where that, like we said at the beginning, has been handed off to the commission and the attorney, but I also think we just heard Colette say that they're involved in that and that they should connect forces. The reality from our last meeting was we red flagged it, that money's been sitting there, but there hasn't been an ROI. I mean, it is, how many years is that now that's an empty spot? And so, I mean, now people are doing the needs that, hey, how long are we gonna wait? Or, so this puts some rigor into other forces saying, okay, let's go figure this out. So.
So I'm focused on process and the fact that Chris has put out some numbers. Again, 136,500 and 63,500 for the childcare center, 63,500 for the Chamber of Commerce. Melissa has just wanted to tag something that she doesn't want to lose. And I think there was consensus on that. So the question is, it comes back to the question really that Chris asked, what would the chamber be doing in using that 63.5? Would that be enough to hire a part-time person and address some of the issues, some of the goals that Melissa identified?
Yeah, I think so, particularly what Melissa was talking about, that virtual hub where we can gather data is gonna be huge for us to know what our community actually needs. Like, we all have ideas and thoughts on what we think the community needs, but I really believe that the website, which I believe this can get it done for us, can tell us what to do in the future. We need to know what our community actually needs instead of us just taking guesses or thinking. And the only thing I think that this is really gonna hit is probably our marketing, but the chamber's already got a pretty good word of mouth going on, so we can definitely utilize that and find some ways. And there's also another grant that I'm looking at that maybe we can look at marketing specific for that. So there are some other opportunities for us. So correct me if you don't think that this is enough, but I think it's enough for us to hire a person and get a website built. Do you think that, Shaylee and Ashley?
Hiring
sorry,
terrifying.
go ahead, Ashley, go ahead.
Well, hiring a person is always really difficult, and with this small amount of money and this like narrow focus and expertise, I'm definitely a little bit nervous about it. But maybe if we think we could also use the money to do like a contract maybe with a consultant or something where we get what we need. We can use the money to get what we need, but maybe we don't try to make it like a hire. Maybe it's more of a, I don't know. Melissa, what do you think about that? And then Shaylee,
Sorry, I'm muted. Yeah, I think that you almost have to do contractual because the same skill set that's going to have web development and design and content is not going to be your same that is going to be able to help consult with the business and do that intake. So I think just understanding that Cassie's the body that's responsible in that chair, what's the best use of that resource to be able to help her and to not reduce her efficacy, because I think the other thing that I'm really sensitive to when it comes to the chamber is, you know, Colette's right in not having that sense of patience and wanting something fixed right now. But as I've said before, I'm looking at that backlog and still fielding people reaching out saying, when is that resource going to be available? When is whatever? And I think I get really excited when I think about what Ben had said about this potential return of funds and how that might be able to assist in chewing through some of that backlog as well. But I do think it's a pretty hefty, lofty task to say, build a website that's a hub that provides information for entrepreneurs in the region. Do it in such a way that it collects all the information that's sufficient for us to understand what we're building for the long term and what kind of support is needed. Create the networking connections between the resources and technical assistance providers that the state's already funding and connect those with the individual specific needs of our local entrepreneurs. And also, by the way, create a business plan from all of that input to say what type of physical facility then would we want to invest in to be able to provide our entrepreneurs co-working space, culinary kitchen, commissary kitchen, consumer packaged goods. And I'm also thinking about it. So that's on the cost side. And then if we flip it around and we look at the benefits side and the return on investment side, the other thing that I'm looking at is Moab and Grand County is in this weird spot with San Juan County and Grand County, meaning we have a huge market that is a potential market for these entrepreneurs to get in front of. There aren't many places that have 3 to 4 million consumers visiting annually, that are not just 3 to 4 million visitors that are consuming annually, but they refresh. Like, these folks change. So they don't just buy the banana bread one time and then, you know, they're over it. Next year, they get full exposure to another, you know, 3 to 4 million new folks. So I guess maybe rather than offering concrete advice, I'm giving more of that 20,000 foot view of looking at the opportunity, balancing the opportunity against the investment, looking at the investment and ensuring that next year we're not in a place of saying, we'd really like to build a facility because we think that there are needs for co-working, community space, meeting space, culinary kitchen space, catering kitchen space, but we just don't know what would be required. So let's talk about it again until the following year. So it's sort of like what Ben said, you know, setting that stage and having a rolling. So I do feel like it sounds like a reasonable ask to maybe get a body there and maybe build a website. But I think it's gonna stretch Cassie then, and I don't think it's I would hate to see it invest just enough so that the chamber can almost produce something.
One idea, and I'll just share this, is we have just gone through an RFP in my department to get a new web platform. And one idea might be, don't hire a web developer or someone that's gonna do that. Go buy an off-the-shelf service that you can renew each year. It doesn't sound like your web presence is gonna have a lot of complexity to it. And within these numbers, I don't wanna steer it, but within those numbers, I know that you can solve that problem. And I don't know, I mean, ours is public information, so you can go look at our RFP and, you know, we had so many responses and narrowed down to 30 to pick to 3. And, that is just a tool at this point. The idea of hiring someone that then might go do something else, or that's risky, but you could mitigate your risk by buying the off the shelf and having them do that. And then you're just renewing next year. That's just an idea. And that's part of that phase. That gets you some infrastructure that supports what you're trying to do.
So basically what we're talking about is taking the money that is available and optimizing it, whether that means hiring someone, contracting out, paying for a service. Like, we can explore those options. I totally agree, Ben. It's definitely not so much about reinventing the wheel every time you need a website these days. So as long as we had the flexibility to spend, I mean, I don't know how, as long as the grant, if we can say, we're going to use this to achieve these goals, but as long as we don't have to commit to hiring someone exactly, or like, can we spend the money? Do we have the flexibility to spend the money to achieve the goals, or do we have to spell out exactly how we're going to do that right now? And then we got to go back to Shaylee. Sorry.
All I was going to say is kind of exactly what Melissa was going to say is I would hate for this chamber to have just enough that we can't meet the goals. I mean, I think we're all invested and into making this happen. But I do feel like I'd almost lean on the side of like caution of saying, okay, if it's going to be exactly 63,000, you know, whatever that number was, you know, maybe a little wiggle room of like 75,000, because it's a lot to ask. I feel like with that money, but yeah, I think we're going to be doing this in phases, like what Ben talked about, and I think we're going to make it happen regardless. But that does. We talked a lot about what number can we get to the point where it's if we get less than that, can we not make this happen? That was one of the big concerns when we were talking about this program. So,
Chris?
I do think that with like this refined proposal, there needs to be some awareness that, one, we're going to rely on Colette and the governor's office for some support in helping create a business plan and a budget for a business incubator, or, you know, based on the needs of Moab. But the other part of that we know we need is still, and I think that Melissa talked about, is that needs assessment, which to me is less. I mean, I hope that this person that's fulfilling like sort of a hub sort of role for business support can help gather some information. But I think we need to proactively get out there and engage the community to assess needs as well. And so I think, I mean, where I'm going with this is that I'm willing to offer some just volunteer time support to do something like that. And I think if we had a committee of people that want to help move this idea forward, you know, with support from the governor's office, we can sort of take on some of those things that had budget numbers attached to them on a voluntary basis. And that's what it's going to require if we really want to make this happen, given these budgetary constraints.
And then we also can leverage the work that's been done, like the business sentiment study that we'll be presenting. I mean, that was very data driven. I mean, that was a very, I don't want to say pricey, but that was a well-funded project. We have the Kem Gardner numbers. that we can go, I mean, the first cut might just be that volunteer analysis to say, it's right here in front of us, let's don't resurvey, or here's where our blind spot is, here's what we do need to go survey.
Yeah, no, I wanted to make sure we were really using those studies too, when we were going, I forgot to mention that, because I don't wanna reinvent the wheel, as Ashley said, there's no point in duplicating those efforts when it's already been done for the county, so I definitely wanted to make sure we were utilizing those.
That was gonna be my question, like how much of the data that we are hoping to get are we already gonna have from all of those other things? And then we would have a better idea of how to better leverage the money that we give the chamber.
I have not gone through and read them all the way. Do those reports tell us like specific business needs that the community is requesting? Or is it more of a high level overview of our economic picture?
That was pretty detailed. I don't want to go too much into it since it's going to be presented next week and it hasn't been accepted. I mean, I got to stay neutral. I'm the overseer of this, and I'm kind of the one, holding these guys to the rigor. But I mean, I'll just tell you from a very high level, we asked the business sentiment question of, do you feel that you are investing a lot into customer service, and do you train that well? Because then we wanted to follow up on the visitor sentiment study to say, do you think when you travel here, you have a good customer experience? And I mean, that's the kind of things we threaded in on top of a lot of other detailed things. Without going down a rat hole, I'll bet you first things you're gonna find if you go to a business sentiment study is we can't hire because people can't afford to live here, and we can't hire skilled people. I mean, it's gonna go right to the two, and you're like, okay. So those are gonna be, and that's in every business sentiment study in Utah right now. So, I mean, for what it's worth.
I think that's what's needed is direct outreach to local entrepreneurs to do the rest of it, to fill it in from the ground up side of the type of support that they need.
Right.
And that's something that I think we can do, that a few of us can help do.
And I agree with that as well. Just my time in San Juan County, a lot of the information that we collected for our small business needs, we got from our business summit, we got from surveys, we got from, direct outreach to our small businesses. And, I personally would go to business and introduce myself. And I really learned a lot about what they were needed. Obviously, it's a much smaller scale than Grand County, but we were able to collect a great deal of information just in-house.
One of the things we were wanting to do is with our business summit, we will have a survey, and then also with each additional training that we offer, we wanted to have surveys and ask. So we didn't want to just limit it to this website where we were gathering information, but to understand what people need, asking them what kind of trainings they would like in the future. I think those kinds of things will be really informative for us as well.
Well, one thing, and this is to kind of support, I hope, what Chris is saying. This was a very big learning in the Trail to Tomorrow strategic plan this past year, is we had 14 different user groups that we came to ask those questions. So we did the work on the front end, and we had to weed some out. So we picked 14 that we thought were the top ones. So we had hoteliers, we had restaurateurs, we had arts and culture. We had the motorized, the non-motorized. A lot of you participated. And the thing that,
Creative industries.
yeah, creative industries. We had entrepreneurial ecosystem. The thing that I would suggest when you go at this strategy is that you segment these before you go do your survey, because a blanket survey, you're gonna get data that isn't great. All those 14 user groups had different stories and different things, whether it be, we have a competing user group, or the government gets in our way, or we don't have this resource, or everyone was different, or we're not maximizing this opportunity, or, a public lands permit. Everything was different. There wasn't something that was just straight across on the top. So, for that segment, if the feasibility and the research, and that's why I appreciate what Chris was saying is some coaching that, you know, there's a lot of really smart people in Grant County that, a lot of really smart people on this call that can help guide that. So we should utilize that skill.
We've, Deborah, thanks for your comments and we look forward to the experiences you've had in San Juan County. As you get more engaged with Drain County. We're at a point now where we've had, great conversation about different elements of both of these projects. We don't have a motion on the table, but I think this is the time to have a motion on the table. And then we can have final discussion and then bring this to a vote. And then decide how we move forward from there. Is there anything else you want to add, Cassie, at this point? I don't see Rob. Oh, is Rob on the phone?
Rob's on the phone.
Okay.
For us, do we have an open action that we need to accept Rob's?
Yeah, okay, we have to do that, yeah. Hey, Rob.
Yes.
I'm gonna call, is there anything else you would like to add after Chris suggested an allocation of 136.5?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's tricky because we have that project for capacity. I mean, like, I think it's already a very small amount. It's like we're already squeezing that $100,000, like, do a 500 square foot-ish commercial building on our site. So I think we could certainly cut probably $10,000 from our ask, and probably still make everything work. The question would be, at some point, if it's too low, then we would just cut. We'd have to kind of like find other funding for that project, which we could probably do. So I'd say, you know, we're really thankful for all your support, and you know, we can find a way to you know, whatever you guys make sense. It sounds like, you know, you all want to do some stuff with the chamber's proposal, and so I definitely don't want to say, you know, like we're just not an all or nothing kind of thing. It's not like we have one bill or one person that can help us support these efforts. So I'd say, you know, we can make a slightly smaller number work. If it was considerably smaller, then we would scrap that classroom and kind of wait on that and do the other stuff for the $63,000 would be the other, or roughly $60,000 for the other things. But yeah, like I said, if it's a little less, I think we can certainly make it all still work.
What about going the other way, Rob? Can I ask about that? I mean, what about funding the infrastructure and trimming a little bit from the employee retention and development program? Is that a possibility?
Yeah,
or are you sort of saying that that's not a way that is smart for your organization?
Yeah, a big reason for a lot of that retention and development program. I mean, the other way to say that would be like that it's helping us get to break-even position, or providing us bridge funding and cash flow, because, you know, we have all these workers and things, and we don't currently charge enough for all of our families. There aren't at full capacity yet because the infants are still growing into the older years. Infants are more cost, you know, it's a higher burden for us from a wage standpoint. So yeah, like that was sort of in some ways part of that was like kind of like a way to rethink and rebrand some of the initial requests I did at the chamber after talking with Paulette, in terms of like, well, we can't provide this. They didn't like the phrase of, or Colette was saying that she was more nervous about the phrase providing like bridge funding or covering operating losses of a new organization, which to me, I was sort of disagreed with or was surprised, because I thought, you know, as a business, for profit or nonprofit, when you start something, usually you have a little bit of losses to get it to a point of break even and profitability. So Yeah, the short answer is yes. We could could cut some of that out, and so yeah, I don't want to what's the word, argue against our own interests, and like we want this funding, we have a use for all of this, but we're very happy to get any level of funding from you guys, and we can make it work for helping to achieve, our goals, no question. So if you want to fully fund the infrastructure side and make the cuts on the other side, that's, like I said, it's, you guys are giving us funding, like that's, I don't want to be too picky, but obviously, we would love to be fully funded with it.
I'm not sure if everyone online heard Rob's comments. They did? Okay.
Or, I
Yes.
don't know if you saw, but Dave put a comment in the chat.
Oh, I did not see.
Are you guys okay? I've got another commitment I've got to get to.
Dave, when do you have to leave?
I need to leave in about 5 minutes.
Okay, so here's the thing, we lose our quorum when you leave. So I'm going to ask for a motion to fund the Moab Community Childcare at $145,000. And the chamber at $55,000. That's just there for discussion. But I'm asking for a motion to get started. Please.
So moved.
Someone, if you don't agree with those dollar amounts, you can make a different motion.
Yeah, I
Right.
can make a different motion if you want.
Okay, make the motion.
Okay. I would move to put forward the dollar amounts that I initially said.
Okay,
I would move to give the chamber 63.5 thousand and Moab Community Childcare 136.5 thousand. And yeah, I don't know if, is that enough of a motion? And then the rest of it should be figured out later, but
I think so.
I do, and I say that because I think that if we start cutting the chamber below the level, that 63.5, we need to start asking something less of them. I
Exactly.
don't think that we can ask them for a smaller amount without, and still, I mean, I think we're already at that's a minimum amount to even do what we've asked for.
Right. Yes, so I have a motion. Is there a second?
Chris's motion, Forrest, or yours? Sorry, just procedure.
No, that it's Chris's motion.
I would second Chris's motion to get it to a vote while we have a quorum, just to see
Great.
where we are.
Thank you, thank you.
Of course.
So the motion is that we support the project from the Moab Community Childcare at $136,500. And the Moab Area Chamber of Commerce funded their project at $63,500. That's the motion that's been seconded. So I'm going to ask all in favor, raise your hand or say aye. We got everybody.
Voters or discussion needs to happen.
We need to go call on
So
everyone.
Shaylee and I both aren't voting because we
Correct,
refused to.
correct. So this is Melissa, Dave, Chris, and Forrest.
Are all in favor?
So Dave, are you voting? can't
I
read.
raised my hand.
Thank you so
I would
much.
love to hear from Jasmine. Any
Okay.
thoughts that you have to share or to add or, oh, sorry.
Melissa, we just voted. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you've all voted, but
But we welcome your comments or thoughts.
yeah, I just wanted to make sure the chamber wasn't duplicating efforts that we've already done with the Trail to Tomorrow study. And that, and that they have enough from this funding to do something important. And that they're not just gonna be stuck with a partial, like, and not really get anywhere with it. Where we know, that the community childcare is making a huge contribution to the community. Well, at the same time, the community childcare is kind of opening up that workforce. We also need our business community, right, to open up those positions for the workforce. So they're equally as important in my mind.
If I can answer,
Please.
I definitely, when we get that Trails Tomorrow study, I will go through that. I'll make sure that we don't duplicate, because I'm with you on that. I don't want to do the same work twice. That's a waste of my time, which is already limited. And then I think as long as we can keep, like Ashley said, keep it flexible so we can pivot this money where we need it to go. Then I think that would be helpful, instead of allocating that this amount goes for this and this amount goes for that. If we could just have a broad, this is what we're, maybe not broad, but like really defined outcomes and objectives, but maybe we don't put a dollar amount with each objective. That way I can take it and move it where we know it needs to go in the moment. That would be really helpful for the chamber.
And one thing is that the chamber's already doing is they've brought the person that did the business sentiment study to their grand summit to speak. So they've already leveraged that talent to be connected. So that's a big positive.
Did the motion pass?
The motion passed and you're excused.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dave. So the motion has been approved. I have some clerical work to do with Cassie and Rob, because we have to have items to community, commission admin, so that they can be included in the agenda for next Tuesday's meeting. And we have one final motion that I will ask for, and that's for a motion to approve Moab Community Child's Care's 2024 Rural County Grant Final Report that was included in the original board packet that we reviewed on July 31st. That report stays the same. I'm just asking for a motion to approve.
I move to approve.
Thank you, Chris. We have a motion to approve. Melissa seconds. I hope we have Shaylee there to. Actually, anybody can vote on this.
Yeah.
Okay,
I approve.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, motion passes. Thank you all. Thank you for,
We didn't have one of those for the chambers last year either. That was from a different grant, right?
we didn't have them. Yeah. Thank you for your patience with me. Thank you for all your good thinking. We are adjourned.
Thanks, Forrest.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate it.
Nice to meet everybody. See you again soon.
Thank you, Deborah.
Great.
Well, we got through it. Cassie, I need to find out. Oh, sorry.